What's going on, guys? Today, I have a topic that I'm really excited about talking about, especially because we just started our summer training program here, which is where high school and college guys fly from all over the country to come train here at OPP in Arizona. And this is a reoccurring topic that continuously comes up, but it's more so in the summer months just because of the heavy influx of clientele. And what this topic is, it is about the lesson paradigm that athletes are continuously stuck in. And so the reason why I call it that is because the lesson paradigm is no fault to the athlete or to the parent. They just don't know what they don't know. So they assume because the athlete isn't doing very well or the athlete's extremely passionate about whatever the sport is. For this, it's going to be baseball, but this could be for anything. They assume because of that, it's like, hey, I'm going to go get him some extra coaching, which is great. That's what you should do. But when you go and you get extra coaching and it's just one-off lessons and you only go there when things are bad or you only go there once in a while, there's not a big follow-up there. There's not a commitment from the athlete. There's not continuous tracking of progress to make sure like you're accomplishing milestones and things like that. And granted, there are coaches out there. This isn't a diss to them because I felt this as an athlete and I've done this as a coach when I first started back in the day. And you don't really know that what you're doing isn't really working that well. Because when you go to a lesson, like let's say that I'm going to a hitting lesson with a hitting coach, that coach's objective for that lesson is going to be focused around making sure that, yes, I, one, do get better. Let's just assume the coach is in it for the right reasons, and I do get better, the hitter gets better. But for two, he also wants you to come back, right? And that can distort the actual service that he gives. Because real training, whether it's skill development with throwing development or hitting or anything, or it's weight training, things take time, and usually your skills diminish for a period of time at first. So based off, whenever you pick up a new skill, whenever you're trying to improve a certain skill, mechanically make some changes, you should expect your current skill level to diminish for a period of time until you compensate later on. And as you super compensate, then eventually you come up above baseline. So you're doing it for a reason. You're doing it because you know that in the future, this will be better for you and you will improve the specific thing that you're trying to improve. But at the beginning, you're learning something completely different, something that you haven't done before, something that is foreign to you. You've done thousands of reps of whatever the other stuff was. And so now you're trying to learn this new thing. And so if you go to a lesson, it's really subjective to the coach just saying, like, do this, and then you hit one ball hard, and they're like, yeah, good job. And so they want you to leave the lesson feeling really good, right? So that way you come back. Like at the end of the day, they got to eat too. And so even though they may be in it for all the right reasons, right, and be really good people, they still want you to come back. And so it's really hard to work with somebody in high school, college, even at the professional level and be like, look, today we're going to do some things that we need to fix. We're going to really work on some stuff that you suck at. And so you should expect to probably not do great today. That's hard, especially if there's no long-term commitment or follow-up. Like that guy, a lot of guys that start here, they leave the first day with all this education. They're like, hey, I know what I'm training for. Like, I know what I'm trying to do. This makes sense. I'm on board with it. But that first day that they're doing it, especially depending on how bad they actually were before they started, they're not leaving the building like, oh, I figured it all out. Like, I'm ready. I got all the feels I needed to, and I'm in a really good spot. Most of them leave that first day like, damn, I got a lot to improve on. I'm nowhere near. Okay, and now imagine doing that at like 15 when you've never had that before. You pay a guy for a lesson, you leave. He has this whole plan for you, right? And you leave because you did bad, and then you go tell mom at home, like, you know, I didn't do that well. Or you maybe your next game, which you expected to, for some weird reason, turn around immediately, get a result, and you go 0 for 4. You know, the mom and the athlete, or the dad and the athlete, are going to immediately try to assume blame, most likely on the coach. Very few times does it actually put blame on the athlete. And so now the athlete's looking around, program hopping from one coach to another, random lesson here, random lesson there, no real follow-up. If things go bad, I may come back. That's the lesson paradigm. And that's what most of these guys who just started this summer, that's what most of them were doing before. One thing I've realized is here, athletes have to be in charge of their own schedule, right? So they get throwing development, they get hitting development, strength conditioning development, mobility classes, things like that. But they have to go in and actually sign up for those classes. It's not just like free will, come on in and just go hit whatever you want. right? So they have to be in charge of their own schedule and schedule these things out in advance. And it's really difficult for them to adapt to that because they never had that onus put on them in the past, right? And so before it was just like mom and dad drove you to a lesson. You went and got a lesson. If you did bad, you probably don't go back for a while. If you did good, you may see him and keep coming back. If you had a good result at a game, regardless if you actually changed anything or not, now you go back to the same guy until you stop getting results and then you flip it, right? Either the parent makes the call, which happens a lot, or the athlete makes the call. And he's like, I'm just not doing well, so I'm going to go to somebody else. That is the lesson paradigm. And so many kids around the world are suffering from that right now. And so they're not getting any better, but they're working really hard. Here it's a monthly payment. So you know that when you come in, like you're in for the month. You got no choice. I mean, you can just not show up, but you paid for it and we're not cheap. So, you might as well come in, right? And so when you come in, you're under this, you immediately get consumed with all this education. We have a hitting course for the athletes when they come in, so that way they have a really good idea on what they're pursuing, why they're pursuing it. We have a throwing coach that goes in detail with an onboard meeting, like with the athlete, like these are the things that you're not good with, these are what we need to improve. And so now we know that this is where the athlete's starting, but we have a roadmap on how to try to get to where we want to get to based off whenever they report for season or whatever their goal is in that moment, right? And because of that, the athlete can suck and fail on day 1 and day 2 and day 3 and day 4 and go through that initial hump where their skills are diminishing for a period of time. And they know that that's okay right now because one, they've been told it. So now they like pre-assume like, hey, I'm probably not going to be very good at this new stuff that I'm trying to do. This is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be Barry Bonds, but it's not. And so you have to go through that initial suck to end up coming out on the other side. And then once you actually start to reap the benefits, that's when you realize like everything is a long game. You're playing the long game with development on everything. For some guys, yeah, you may gain 7 to 8 miles an hour in the summer. That's great. For other guys who are already kind of throwing really hard, you may gain 1, and that may be all you need. The process is going to be different depending on the person. But you have to be able to be okay with that. The only thing that you can control is how hard you work and how consistent you are. That's it. But when you're stuck in the lesson paradigm, you can work as hard as you want and go back to the same coach every few weeks and still not go anywhere, right? If you go to the same coach for a few lessons in a row and you do bad in those 3-4 lessons and you only saw them one-off weeks and then you're going back to your school and you're playing and you're not doing extremely well and drastic changes aren't being made, you're probably not going to be there for that long, right? And then from a coaching perspective, we have a lot of coaches that follow this channel as well. It's like you and me, we both know that that is not the ideal situation, right? And so when I used to give lessons, I hated it. I hated it because the athletes would usually leave day 1 not feeling amazing about themselves. They'd be like, wow, I didn't know I was this bad. They would I would show them video of where they're currently at, comparing them to, other guys that we're trying to be like and things like that. I would break down why they're not, succeeding right now. And I would be like, these are the things that we want to try to accomplish in the future. And that's a lot of upfront work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of like, oh, I'm going to suck at this for a minute. And people did not like it. And so although they enjoyed the coaching, I assume, because a lot of people did stay, they weren't consistent enough to actually get results. The moment that I started making people sign up for a whole month in advance and be like, look, you have to make it to like 5 sessions a week, right? Or we're going to kick you out. That changed the game. Results got drastically better only because I put the onus on them, like you're paying up front and this is how we're going to do this. And immediately results were 10 times better. And the parents could now start to see changes actually being made. Nothing's worse when you're a coach and you only work with a kid 3 or 4 times and the parents come back to you like, hey, he's still not doing this very well. It's like, yeah, no shit. He's not very good, right? Like, why would you expect for him to do that one thing extremely well? I've worked with him like 3 times. It takes a while, thousands of repetitions to end up like making that change and make it almost subconscious in a way where you just naturally do it in a game. It doesn't happen overnight. And when you're stuck in the lesson paradigm, you're expecting things to happen way too quickly, and they just can't. Unless you're doing lessons every day, which is usually way more expensive than, going for full development to like any training facility and like selling out on your objective and, paying like a one-time fee. Lessons every hour. Well, I mean, I know me, like when guys travel in here to come do a hitting session with me, a hitting lesson, they'll travel, but I make them stay for at least 5 days. You can't come for like 1 day. Okay. And most of the time it's just pro guys that do that. They'll travel in, or college guys, they'll travel in and they'll hit with me for like 5 days. Right. And in those 5 days, they always wish that they had more days. Okay. But imagine if they came in on 1 day, it'd be a waste of time. A 1 day hitting session is a complete waste of time. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm not going to really be able to actually help you in your career. I may be able to give you a ton of information and value in that moment, hopefully try to figure some things out and feel it. But it's really, really difficult to make a drastic change in 1 day, or drastic improvement in 1 day. And so usually that's the only time that we do that, is when guys fly down. And 99% of the time, it's going to be a pro guy that does it, who has already been chasing a similar swing or philosophy that we already teach. We've already worked in the past. And when they come down, they're already up to speed on education stuff. So we can really get into the feels and drills and things like that we need to get into. They have a clear objective already set forth before they get here. Right? But a newbie, fresh, 15, 16, that's so hard. That's so difficult for them to actually adapt to that environment and be completely okay with sucking maybe for that whole first week and only making like incremental changes for those 5 days, you know? So anyways, this was short, like I said, but I really wanted to touch on this. I truly believe that if you go all in on your development, you have to sell out for the long term. You have to start thinking 3 to 5 years in advance on where you want to be. Okay, and for some of you, that's going to be extremely difficult because you start your development so late. So if you're in high school and you're not starting your development until you're 17, 18, you have such a long road ahead of you to develop. It's hard for you to start thinking 3 to 5 years because you got 1 year to make a commitment. You know, but at the end of the day, like, that's on you. You probably should have started this when you were 14, and then set a goal for the end of high school, and then set a goal for the end of college, and then set a goal once you get into pro ball and things like that, and actually have a plan in place or people in your corner to make that happen, you know? And so then the last thing that I want to talk about is the people in your corner. I think that when you do sell out on development, it's really important to make sure that you actually trust and you go all in with the people that you're putting in place. Okay? Because you could have a really crappy program, it just being 100% honest, you can have a pretty crappy program in the weight room, on the throwing development and on the hitting. But if you work your ass off and you are extremely consistent, you will get better. How much you get better, you know, that's up in the air. Genetically, what you're born with, some people are just born better than you. They'll see drastic gains when you see only a little bit. And then how really good the programming actually is does play a role. But at the end of the day, if you just trained your ass off and completely believed in the people that you actually put in your corner to help you, you would get better. You would. It's the guys that are like 1 foot out and 1 foot in that kind of hover. They hover around because they're not all in with the people that are actually trying to help them. Okay, so if you break out of the lesson paradigm, you hear this podcast and you're a coach and you're like, all right, I'm done doing this. This is what I'm going to do up front. If that happens, you're going to hurt financially at the beginning, but at the end, you'll be okay. If you're an athlete and you're like, all right, I'm done with the lesson paradigm, I'm going to go sell out on training, sell out for a long period of time. You don't want to dibble dabble and just try it for a month. It's called a delayed training effect for a reason. You're not going to actually get those results for a period of time. So you got to go all in, invest your time, invest your finances, and go all in with it for a long period of time. And if you feel like there is a better option after you kind of go through that process, then go to the better option if you're not really getting results after a long period of time. Okay, so I hope this information helps you guys. I thought it was valuable because I see it every day out here on the training floor. I see it every off season when athletes come in and try to train with us. I can tell immediately the ones that have been stuck in the lesson paradigm and the ones that haven't. And, there is one more thing. For the athletes that have been stuck in the lesson paradigm, this is something that consistently happens. So I really want to touch on this. They don't actually handle coaching extremely well because most of the time the coaching has been like, hey, hit this ball over there and do it really hard. Then they do it, right? Maybe the swing's trash, but they do it. Good job. And it's like, you did well. And the athlete's always looking up like, is that good? Is that good? Is that good? Because they're waiting for the reassurance from the coach, like, is that good? When athletes come in and they immediately start asking me that, I'm kind of like looking away, like trying to avoid it because I don't want them to immediately take a swing and look for the feedback from me every time. But that's what happens when you're stuck in the lesson paradigm. It's hard to learn organically from the environment because you're not learning from failing. You're learning from somebody telling you whether you're doing good or bad, which is not ideal. You know, as coaches, we're supposed to provide the environment that actually improves It makes the stimulus and improves the athlete, okay? We're not supposed to just sit there and be like, good job, bad job, good job, bad job, you know? So, all right, that's it. I won't keep you guys any longer. Thank you for watching. If you like this podcast, if this helped you, follow, subscribe, share it. Let me know that you liked it. Thanks.